In today's vlog, I want to talk about the elements and elemental symbols. There's a lot of things that can be discussed about the elements and how you can use or apply them, but specifically I want to talk about a book that I had read, I guess, over 20 years ago, maybe 24 years ago. I don't remember exactly when I got it. I know I got it after 2000. Yeah, I had already started getting into a lot of the esoteric arcane stuff, and I picked up this book called Witchcraft, Theory and Practice by Lie DeAngelis. Now, with this book, it looks like it was published in 2000, and of course, it's a Llewellyn book. It's not that I don't like Llewellyn. I've mentioned before, Llewellyn Publications has a tendency to print a lot of books on these topics, but some of the authors, it's questionable where they get their material from. When I first started reading these books, I took everything at face value. They wrote it down, it had to have been true. Now, if you've watched some of my other vlogs and videos before here on YouTube, you'll understand my thoughts on witchcraft. In fact, if you've not checked it out, check out the history of modern witchcraft. It's not witchcraft what they're doing. If you yourself are doing something called witchcraft, you're probably not doing witchcraft per se. I guess definitions change with time, but modern witchcraft is an amalgamation of different practices. And this is one example of that. So if you turn to page 69, if you own this book, we start talking about the elemental symbols. So there's earth, there's air and fire and water. It doesn't have one for spirit. So I, of course, took notes in this because I was like, oh, you know, all this must be true. It's written down. They had to have gotten it from somewhere. Obviously, if they're an author, they must know what they're talking about. So it talks about like different properties associated with each of the elements, and it has a symbol for them. So of course I wrote it down in my journal. Most people were calling the journals, magical journals, Book of Shadows. At the time I had a notebook of shadows. I think in 2000 I might have migrated from a spiral bound notebook into an actual like journal notebook. I think I had like a marble cover, and eventually I went to a leather bound one. So either way, I wrote this down. I was like, oh yeah, this has to be a representation. And there's different types of work that you can do with like wands or athames where you're like tracing symbols in the air. So if you're evoking or invoking, there are two different things, and that can be in future videos, but the essence of it, to invoke is to draw in, to evoke is to bring about in front of you. At least that's the way I remember it being. And using these symbols, if you're trying to do something and it's associated with like the properties of air, you would draw the air triangle in the air, and that would be one way of using your wand symbolically for a ritual if you wanted to, ceremonial type magic. However, as I've gotten older, especially the last 5 years, I've really started getting into, okay, where does this stuff come from? So of course, we'll have references to some of the links below. We'll talk about the books that I heard it from. And I realized that these symbols aren't witchcraft symbols. Again, when I was mentioning a little bit earlier that witchcraft is not what people think it is. People use the term witchcraft almost generically as if they're using the term magic, and I don't know why. It's alchemy. So if you look up alchemy and you look up the alchemy symbols for the elements, they're the exact same symbol. So let's go ahead and pull up some websites. So on this first tab here, it talks about the alchemy symbols and their meaning, the extended list of alchemical symbols. So of course we have the 4 classical elements, which were very popular in a lot of the European movements. Apparently some of these have origins in Greek. So we have the earth symbol here. Now the idea here, if you think about like with the triangle, it's sitting in the earth. So there's this line. So if you want to try to memorize these, it's kind of like a line for the earth, and the symbol is sitting in the earth. The one for fire, it's resting and the flames are going upward, right? Water is a cup so that you can hold it. And then air is everything above where you are. So that's the sky. The other one's the earth, and it's pointing in the direction. So the solid line is, you know, something that's present above, one's present below, and then you have something for kind of like an incense cone, I guess, or a fire would have its source and the heat would go upward, and then water falls downward, can also be collected in a cup. There's different ways of thinking about it, but in either case, and then there's of course a whole bunch of other symbols too with alchemy. It's not just that one. And of course, these links will all be below. So the next one here, this is Symbol Sage, popular alchemy symbols and their meaning. Again, if you scroll down, you can read about alchemy if you don't know anything about it. Continuing downward, you have the exact same 4 symbols and the exact same elements that it's referencing. So again, with the fire, water, air, and earth. And then one more, we have the, let's see, this is Prep Scholar. So the 22 key alchemy symbols and their meanings. And again, scrolling down, you'll see pretty much the same symbols as you saw before, and you'll get down to this section, the 4 classical elements again, air, earth, fire, and water. So yet again, we're seeing the exact same thing. And I think this is kind of what I'm trying to get at and come to an understanding with. These thoughts are shared amongst many different paths, and it's cool to apply them. It's fine that Lai D'Angelo's applied that, and a lot of people that take a modern approach to occultism or arcane practices have a tendency to draw from different paths and traditions. I like to know where they come from. I'm kind of done with just doing things because that's what everyone else does. I want to do them with purpose and meaning, and I want to acknowledge where they come from. So if you work with these, that's fine. Now you know where they come from, and you can do deeper research into them, what might have inspired them originally. So there you go. If you've not worked with the alchemy symbols representing the 4 elements as building blocks of the universe, now you know where they come from, where they lie from. I don't know if you use them in any way, shape, or form, if you draw them on stuff, or if you draw them in the air with your finger or with a wand or anything like that, but it's definitely something that you could consider. What are your thoughts on it? Have you seen these symbols before? Did you know they were alchemy symbols? How about using them in modern ritual? Do you do so? And if so, how do you use it? Always nice to have a fun conversation. So anyway, that's my little sharing vlog for the day, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.